I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to be making a pair of earrings for you today called the Lamp Light Earrings. You can also make this into a bunch of beaded beads that you could put next to one another on a necklace that they would sit right next to one another, lined up on the necklace. You can make it a pendant, but I'm doing it as a pair of earrings. I think these are really flashy and fun. You can do them in all different colors. The lamplight earrings here are featuring our Ava bead. So if you haven't figured out, we have a new bead out and it's called the Ava bead. The Ava bead is an A shape. If you turn it this way, it's a V shape, hence the name Ava. And it has two holes. So it has a hole that runs through the top here and a hole that runs at the base. It's a unique bead because it's not done by machine, because of its shape, because of its delicate shape, and because of the way that the holes are. It actually has to be hand pressed. So this is a hand pressed bead out of the Czech Republic that we manufactured. The cool thing with these earrings are we're using the Ava in both ways, both sitting up like an A and a V. To do the earrings, or to do each bead, you're going to need 8 of your Ava beads, 4 for the top and 4 for the bottom. So altogether, if you want to make a pair of earrings, you need 16 beads. If you want to do a couple different bead slides, you can use those as well. You can either do them lengthwise like this and have them be on the slide that way, or side to side. You can do the same for the earrings. If you want to, you could have them be this way rather than the lamplight way that I have them here. So 8 Avas are what you're going to need per bead or per earring. In addition to that, I have some 4mm Swarovski Bicones, and this color here is that light Siam, and it's satin or hyacinth would go well. Any of those kind of orangey colors. I liked that play off this jet bronze that I'll be using. And for that, you're going to be using 7 crystals, 6 for the bead, and then that 7th one right at the top, so 14 crystals altogether. I am using 15 seed beads. I'm using the Galvanized champagne, the Duracoat Galvanized champagne in the 15-0. Because it is a pair of earrings, you're going to need 2 ear wires. And then also I have some 24 gauge wire, which we'll use to kind of connect them at the top. Because we are working with multiple techniques, you will need some thread and a needle. This is a size 12 beading needle, and I'm using 0.006 white wildfire beading thread. In addition to my thread and needle, because I do have my 24 gauge wire, and really just about 5-6 inches of that wire will do it, even for both earrings. I do have some pliers sitting by. I have my flat nose pliers, my wire cutters, and my round nose pliers. So we'll get to those when we get to the earring portion. If you just want to do it as a bead, you're not going to need those pliers. One thing you will want to have tool-wise near you also is the wildfire or thread burner of any kind, Thread Zap Ultra, any of those will do, but that's going to help to burn down the threads right at the end when we go through and tie them together. If you're a glue person, I prefer super glue glue to glue the thread ends actually together, but you can also kind of make a stop with that cord cutter or thread burner, so you don't necessarily need the super glue. It's always great to have a nice workable surface too. Something that you can transport is even better. I like to use my Bead On It board when I'm not at the filming station here and hang out with that. To get started, I do want to have about 30 inches or so of my thread on the size 12 needle, and you're going to dump out little piles of your 15-0s along with your Ava beads. You can push your ear wires and your other wire off to the side along with your tools, because we're going to go ahead and do our seed beading or bead weaving portion first. So to get started with our lamplight bead here, what I'm going to be doing is going through and basically adding a center line of my Ava beads. To do so, I'm going to pick up the Ava so that it's facing towards, the point is facing to the left. I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the Ava and come out between the bead, go down and have about a 2-inch tail that you're just going to hold on to. In between the Ava bead, pick up a 15-0, your 4mm bicone, and a 15-0, and then sew through the second hole of the Ava bead. That's going to pop those crystals right in the middle there. The 4mm bicone sits very close in on the Ava. Adding the 15-0s allows it to puff out a tiny bit more. Put on a 15-0, and then we're going to repeat that process, adding in the Ava through the first hole. You can let it drop down next to the one that's already there. Pick up a 15, a crystal, and a 15, and sew through that second hole of the Ava. So I say the Ava bead is 2 holes, but it's actually almost kind of 3 holes because of its shape. That it has the hole at the top that goes through, and then these 2 unjoined holes at the bottom. That's also what made the manufacturing a little bit tricky, and why it took a lot longer for them to get to us. So I'm continuing this 4 times, adding in my 15s on the side of my 4mm crystal, and then sewing through the second side of the Ava. So I have 3 on. We'll do 1 more. Pick up the 15 to separate them. If you want them to be just a little bit bigger look, you can also use an 11 between them. Add in the 15, crystal, and 15, and then sew through the other side. Once you have those 4 on, and you can see they're kind of flipping up and down, might give you some ideas for other designs. What I'm going to do is add another 15-0. That 15-0 then is going to go on right next to my Ava beads, and then I'm going to bring the whole thing around in a circle. To bring it around in a circle, I'm going to take the tail, or that 2 inches, that 3 inches that we left at the end, and simply tie it in a knot, making sure that that 15-0 that you just added doesn't actually go into your knot. Give a nice tight pull, and you have that, you do that nice tight pull, and then you have that extra knot right there next to the Ava bead, and you're going to be able to pull that in close and get that little circular effect. Once you have that nice circle, we're going to take our needle and thread, give a nice tight pull again, and we're going to sew through the next 15 or the next Ava bead in line, through the 15-0, through the crystal, which sometimes you have to do in parts. So right there I got through the 15-0, sew through the crystal. At the same time, if you can sew through the 15-0 and the Ava on the other side, great. You don't want to sew through the 15-0 between the Ava beads though. What I am going to do now that I'm coming out of one of my Ava beads, I'm going to add in 6 15-0 seed beads and sew in to the top hole, reversing my thread on the same Ava bead. That's going to add in here 6 beads right along the side of that one Ava bead. So everything's still kind of disconnected here, but you can see it's sitting in a pyramid. Even though we only have one of our stripes basically in here, or our in-between sections, we're going to go ahead and connect this top. So we have our 15-0, and we're going to sew through the top hole of the Ava beads, binding them or catching them all together. I'm going to pull that tail out of there. So you can see I'm not pulling super tight. I'm just adding a 15, sewing through the next Ava. So you're going to add in 4 15s right here, 1 between each Ava bead. Even as I come around to the starter bead here, where I do have those 15-0s going up along the side, I am going to add in 1 more 15-0 and go through that Ava bead. That 15-0 will sit right above that line of 6. So you want to make sure that your thread and that bead goes above that initial line. It's going to sit right there above. Once you have those beads in, it sits almost like a little pyramid or a little teepee. You can see that little space there. What we're going to do is add in our other 4 lines here, or 3 lines because we have 1. So we're going to pick up, coming out of the Ava bead, pick up 6 of your 15 O's. Sew into the Ava bead at the bottom. You want to make sure that you're sewing into the same Ava bead and not crossing over to another. So I'm sewing into the same Ava bead at that very bottom line. And if it happens to want to go through those seed beads at the same time, or the crystal, that's fine. If you need to, in order to make it to go through too, you can kind of bend it back with your hand. Do a little wiggling, because it is going to want to go through some of those beads at the same time. It's coming out the 15 there. Give a nice little yank and pull those seed beads nice and laying right along the line. Go through the crystal, the seed bead, and the Ava. The 15 here along the bottom, the crystal, the Ava bead, through the crystal. And we're just getting to a side now that doesn't already have the seed beads in place there. So going through the 15, the crystal, and the 15 again. And through, straight on then, through the Ava. And you can see this Ava here that I'm coming out of right now already has a line down the one side. I'm going clear over to the other one that doesn't have lines down either side. So I'm going around that basically baseline, or that circle, that little teepee bottom, to get over to that Ava. Once your needle and thread is out that far end of the Ava bead that you need to go on the sides of, again, you're just going to add 6 beads. If you want to use 11 O's to make it have a bigger statement down the middle, you're just going to use 4 of them. Go up to the top of the Ava bead and through the top, not through the seed beads that are already there. Kind of push those seed beads in the middle. When you're out this side here, add in 6 more. And that's going to finish up our side going through the Ava at the base, through the 15-0, and through the crystal. When you look then, you have your Ava bead here, that top section of your beaded bead. To add the second part of the beaded bead, I'm going to start doing the opposite, or adding in the Ava bead here around in the opposite direction. When you look at the Ava bead here, and you look at this little lamplight bead, you're going to have 2 15 O's on either side of the crystal. When I'm coming out the crystal right here, I'm going to add a 15 O, and I'm going to go through an Ava bead, but if you stack the Ava bead exactly where it needs to go, you're going to realize I'm just going through one hole of the Ava bead. We'll come back around and attach it. So I'm at that one hole right there. Coming out the Ava bead, add a 15 O, and another Ava bead, just like we've been doing, going through the first hole with the Ava pointing to the left. Once you're out that Ava bead, you're going to add a 15 O, and instead of adding a crystal, you're going to go through the crystal that's already there. Give a nice tight pull, add a 15, and go through the second hole of that same Ava bead. You can see now how those fit together. When you're at the end of an Ava bead, add a 15 O, add a new Ava, add another 15, pick up the 4mm crystal that's already there, sewing through it, add another 15, and then sew through that second hole along the base of the Ava. Again, 15 O. You have one Ava left, so you're going to sew through the Ava, add a 15, sew through the last, that orange crystal that's already there, add a 15, sew through the second hole of that Ava that you're already coming out of. Give a nice tight pull and kind of push those Avas up towards the top. When you do that, we still need to connect that very first Ava. To do so, add a 15-0, sew through the first hole of the first Ava that you added, add a 15-0 again, and sew through the crystal. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to get rid of, when you do a nice tight pull, any extra thread that you may have kind of exposed there right along the edge. What we're going to do now is sew through, coming out the crystal, I'm going to sew through the 15 and the Ava bead. And then just like we did on the opposite side, put on my 6 15-0s and go through the top hole of the Ava bead. And now we're going to connect them all. So we're going through the top hole of the Ava, or the point, adding a 15-0 between each Ava as we sew through that top hole. So 15-0 goes on, sew through the top hole. As we come back around to that starter side, still add the 15 and go through the Ava, making sure that that 15 sits on top of your line of your 15-0s. When I'm coming out the Ava on the other side here, 6 more 15s get added. I'm going to sew into the bottom of that same Ava bead. Give a nice tight pull and get rid of any extra thread that you may see it exposed. Along the baseline here then, you're going to sew through the 15 and the crystal and the 15, and we're going to work our way the whole way around until we get over to this empty Ava bead to the second side. So you're literally just going to sew right along the end, going through the 15s, the Avas, and the crystals, all the way till you get to the other side. And this, because you are going in between beads here, and you're kind of wiggling between beads, it's a great idea to put a size 12 needle on. If you have a 10 on, you might want to switch. I know I had said at the beginning about using a 12. I originally, when I had done the first one, had a 10 on, and then switched when I got to this point. So I'm sewing the whole way over. Here I'm at the first side of that Ava bead, but I need to go the whole way to the opposite side, so I can come back around and add the lines down both sides. As you do this, the bead will still feel a tiny bit flimsy. You want to make sure as you're spinning around and kind of doing this, give tight pulls and try to shrink up the amount of thread that's showing. After you are through your 15 and you're out the second side of your Ava here, go ahead and do your lines up or your groupings of 6 15-0s. So into the top hole of the Ava, 6 more, and into the bottom hole of that same Ava, and out. If you wanted this to be a beaded bead and you want to put a bunch on a necklace, you're actually at a point now where you are finished. So all you need to do is get your thread ends next to one another, and you're just going to tie them off together. Because I had an earring here and I wanted it to sit nicely on my ear, I decided to add a crystal at the top and the bottom. If you wanted to, you could get a head pin, add a crystal on your head pin, throw your beaded bead on it, and then put a crystal right along the top. I decided to sew mine in. To do so, I'm going to come and go through the 15-0. It's right here along the side. After my Ava, go through the crystal one more time. Go through the 15 and through the Ava. Then when I come out the Ava and I'm on an area where I have those 5 15s going up, what I want to do is actually sew through, or I'm sorry, those 6 15s, I'm going to sew through that central line. When I'm coming out the top of those 6 beads, add 3 more 15s, your crystal, and 3 more 15s. Scoot on over to the clear other side of that line and sew down the opposite line of 15s. So it's basically jumping the middle there, right over top. Once I'm out the base here, I'm going to shift over to the other side by going through the 15, through the Ava, that tail out of the way. So through the 15, through the Ava bead, through the Ava on the other, or the 15 on the other side. And when you go through the 15, after it, we're going to go through the crystal, but what we're going to do to get from one side to the other, and to kind of be a little bit sneaky, is we're actually going to come out the crystal through the crystal, and then we're going to sneak from the left side here to the right side and go through that 15-0, and that'll put us from one side to the other. Going through the Ava then, and we're coming out the Ava. I'm going to push that tail just off to the end, go through that line of 6 right in the middle. When we get to the top of that line of 6, add 3 more 15s, and crystal, and then 3 more of those 15s. And down the opposite side, only going down through those groupings of 6. Ooh. You can see here I went beside. What I actually want to do is go clear onto the other side. So go out that line that I just did, cross over here to the opposite side. Once you have your thread and needle out that line of 6, it's time to get rid of your thread. So that started thread, if you want to, you can kind of burn down. Just take your thread burner, burn it down. And then this second thread that we have here at the end, you're just going to take a couple places through some of your beads, pick up the thread underneath or a bridge thread, and just knot it off. And do that a couple times, going under the bridge thread, creating a loop, sewing through that loop. And because these are earrings or beads, whatever you want to do with them, they're really not going to get that much tension on the bead itself. So you don't have to really worry that much about it pulling one way or the other. Once I have that, then you can see I just burned down the thread, and there I have my little lamplight bead. What I did at the top here is I took my wire, and this is 24 gauge wire, I went straight through the crystal with that 24 gauge wire. With my wire here on the top, I'm going to crisscross over the crystal. One side has about 1 inch and the other side has about 2 inches of wire. I'm just crisscrossing right over top of that bicone. Grabbing with my pliers here, I'm going to take the bigger side, or the 2-inch end, and bend it straight up. So when I look at it, that longer 2-inch piece is almost going to be like a head pin that's going straight up. Grab right above the crystal and take that shorter piece and wrap it once around the opposite wire. Take your wire cutters, do a little cut, and we have our little triangle there to hold our bead. Add your last 4mm crystal on to your wire. Cut your wire down if you want. Grab your round nose pliers. You could do a wire wrapped loop also. All I did for this one, just to kind of make it a fun little look, you want to grab the wire where you can see the wire coming out your round nose pliers, but you can't actually feel the wire coming out the round nose pliers. And I made a nice small loop by just rolling it in my hands and rolling it through the pliers. That made a nice small loop. I want the loop to be identical to the actual little crisscross section, so you want it to face forward just like your crisscross section. If you need to, you can put your round nose back in, kind of straighten it out. Grab your ear wire. And whenever you have an ear wire or anything that has a closed circle like that, you always want to push it to the side and open it that way rather than pulling open the loop. Put on your loop that you made for your earring and close it up. Your lamplight earrings then are all finished. So the fun thing, like I said, you can make these into beads. How stunning would a necklace be if you had a bunch of these lined up and actually had them as beaded beads along a necklace? So it's another idea to do with this same technique. Again, you can just leave the crystals off the end and then string the crystals through on the slider to get that fun look. You could do them in a bunch of different colors, a bunch of different crystal colors, birthstones, fall tones, all kinds of different options for you. If you get a chance to pick up these Ava beads, they are really so fun to play with, and the creativity just kind of flows as you stack them and kind of move them along one another. The lamp-like earrings are the first YouTube video that I'm doing. I have a couple other designs that I need to do as well with this fun look and working with these fun Ava beads. If you do need any of the materials for the Ava beads, at the very beginning on the left-hand column, usually we do a little drop-down. If you're on a mobile device, sometimes even iPads will do this. They won't put that there, so just go below the video here. There'll be a little link to all the materials that were used in these earrings that you can pick up if you need to pick some of them up, and we're happy to ship to you and get them to you that way. You can also check out your local Potomac Bead Company stores and gather materials. Give them a call, see if they've gotten the Ava beads in yet, and they'll be happy to get them in for you if you need them. As always, if you like the different instructions that show you what to do, show you all the new products that come out, and want to see other things that I make or I record, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also, like I said, shop online with me. And you can also stay connected with us if you want to stay connected more than just subscribing to the YouTube channel. You can visit us on Facebook and also ask to become a member of our Facebook group, which is for beading and jewelry making, and show us all the different fun things that you're making there, the different ideas that you have, interact, answer people's questions, and help out other fellow beaders as well. As always, everybody, thanks so much for watching, and have fun playing with our new Ava beads and making these little lamp light earrings or beads.